how to do it. Now you met with Elon Musk, it's going to happen. Talk about the promise of Doge and just that example of how messed up things are becoming.
So just for to what he's referring to, during the Biden administration, we rejected federal funds on a variety of things because they had strings attached. So some of the road funding, we had to do all the DEI and woke policies, which are totally contrary to our state's policy. We had kind of led the fight against that stuff. Now it's more fashionable to be against it. When we were doing it, we were kind of having an uphill battle. So we did it, and we told the Department of Transportation and the Biden administration, here's $350 million or however much it is. We're not using it, and they're like, we don't know. We don't know how to take it back. They literally did not know how to take back the money. Same thing on refugee money to send back, I believe, to HHS. They didn't do. So I'm like sitting on almost $900 million. We're not going to accept it because we're not going to change our behavior. So let's send it back and be part of the Doge efforts. So we went up and met with Elon on Friday in Washington, and he had one of his lieutenants there, and they were just like, you want to give back money? Like, yeah, we'll accept it. They got on the phone to Treasury, and like within like 30 minutes, we had a plan to do it. And so we have initiated that. And so what's the promise of Doge generally? I think there's a lot of promise. I think when you see some of the spending that's happened, nobody justifies some of the grants that have been going out on some of these things. It was clearly taking taxpayer money and using it to push an ideological agenda. It was not about serving the interests of the country or what's in the public's interest. It was an ideological niche interest. And basically, these agencies had been taken captive by this viewpoint and used your money for that. So I think it's been great to expose. Here, I think, is the challenge, though. We're here talking about a balanced budget amendment because Congress won't change its behavior. Elon, and they're using a lot of savvy tech and all this stuff, are showing how the government mismanages money, but also just substantively, should government spend it on this? Because people have voted to do this in Congress for many years. Why are they doing it? How do you justify it? So you're running into kind of the momentum that Elon has with Doge, with the fact that Congress has not been willing to change its behavior. The reason we've gotten in this with respect to fiscal is because there are certain incentives for the people that are in Washington to behave the way they do, and we need to change those incentives. And that involves we, the people in our states, doing what the Founding Fathers put in the Constitution to propose an amendment to provide some of those constraints on their behavior, in this case, requiring a balanced budget for the U.S. government. Now, I have to balance the budget in Florida. Idaho has to balance the budget. Don't tell me it can't be done. When I became governor in 2019, if you take all the debt in the history of Florida from the 1840s when we became a state that we've accumulated until I became governor, just in my tenure, we've paid off 41% of the state's total debt. Now, that's not just an annual surplus. We run that, but we're actually digging in, taking our surplus, doing tax cuts and other things, but then paying down this debt. By the time my term expires, we will likely have paid down over half of the state's debt that was accumulated over 180 years ago. We had to make tough choices, but part of the reason we were able to do that is because there's never a question that we have to at least balance the budget. So it's either balanced or surplus. We don't have the option to do others, so people understand that, and they're more willing to make really important decisions. So Idaho has an opportunity to certify this proposed amendment under Article 5 of the Constitution. There have been 27 states, including Florida, that have done it. As Governor Little mentioned, I'm going to be going to Montana, and we're going to be meeting with those folks. If Idaho and Montana join the fight, that gets us to 29. There's a couple other states that are on the precipice as well. You need 34 states to trigger Article 5, where you would actually write an amendment and then eventually send to the states for ratification. I don't think it would even get that far. I think if you got to 33 states, I think Congress would see the writing on the wall, and I think they would rush to write an amendment that they would then pass and then send to the states for ratification. Keep in mind, it requires 3/4 of the states to ratify any changes to the Constitution. I'm a small C conservative. I'm a big believer that the Founding Fathers did better than anyone has ever done in devising a plan of government. It's not something that I would do lightly, asking for an amendment to the Constitution.